It was once the happiest show in the water. Now it's a PR disaster, drowning in lawsuits, protests, and plummeting profits. SeaWorld, a once beloved marine attraction, has become a symbol of controversy and animal cruelty. Attendance is down, public trust is shattered, and the backlash keeps growing year after year. So how did the tides turn so drastically? And are the sharks circling this once family favorite? Find out on this episode of The Infographic Show why SeaWorld is failing. In the American theme park world, there are the big dogs, and then there is everyone else. Leading the pack, of course, is Disney. It has a 2-park complex in California, a massive 4-park complex larger than several small nations in Florida, and international parks in France, China, Hong Kong, and Japan. That's in addition to the recently announced one in the United Arab Emirates. In 2023, Disney saw 142 million people visit its parks. Universal, with major parks in California, Orlando, Japan, China, and Singapore, saw over 60 million visitors in 2023, making it the second-largest U.S. theme park chain. The opening of Epic Universe in Orlando is expected to boost those numbers, but the company isn't stopping there. It's opening different types of smaller parks aimed at families with young kids and horror buffs looking for a year-round scare. And everyone else is looking for their piece of the pie. One of the most famous theme parks in the world outside of the big two, SeaWorld, has one big advantage going for it: location, location, location. The first SeaWorld opened in San Diego in 1964, only 2 hours from Disneyland. The second park in Orlando opened in 1973, only minutes from Disney World. In both cases, SeaWorld positioned itself as a lower-cost educational alternative to the more expensive, crowded Disney parks and the Universal parks that would join them in the following decades. The parks combine high-octane roller coasters and family-friendly rides with educational animal activities and shows featuring trained marine mammals. For a long time, it was a hit, a popular spot for both family vacations and school trips. But the good times were not to last. Today, SeaWorld runs 4 major parks, including one in San Antonio, added back in 1988. In 2023, a new location opened at Abu Dhabi, officially licensed but operated independently by the Miral Group. Meanwhile, SeaWorld on Australia's Gold Coast might share the same name, but it is completely unaffiliated, which no doubt got them a lot of calls from lawyers. SeaWorld itself is part of a larger umbrella company, United Parks and Resorts, which also owns Busch Gardens, Sesame Place, and several other water parks and attractions that are often bundled with its major theme park destinations. But the wettest theme park around may be in for some rough waters. Is United Parks and Resorts a company? Well, that depends on what you look at. It's ranked 5th in terms of attendance among U.S. parks and 9th worldwide, with a 2023 attendance record of 21.6 million, a fraction of its competition in the area, but it also has a fraction of its operating costs. Most of its locations are either looking to take overflow from the massive parks or are the only game in town in locations without a strong theme park scene. None of the parks are currently considered as being in danger of closing. But the theme park scene changes all the time, and there are some ominous signs. When it opened, it was a very different time, and SeaWorld was trying to capture something completely different from its competition. In the early days, most of the theme parks were either traditional roller coaster parks, heavily inspired by old-fashioned carnivals, or the new heavily themed experience that Disney pioneered. SeaWorld, by comparison, tried to capture a vibe of edutainment, combining thrilling rides with shows that let people get up close and personal with some of the ocean's most majestic beasts. Not only did it work, it was a phenomenon. The park's signature attraction, Shamu, was a massive killer whale who worked with a trainer and did impressive jumps that would leave the entire audience soaked. As orcas don't live forever, Shamu was more of a title that multiple orcas would hold. But sooner or later, people started asking tough questions. SeaWorld would constantly say that their animals were treated well, both they and their trainers were safe, and the animals enjoyed performing. But could anyone ask the animals? Not really, and that soon aroused the ire of animal rights activists who back then were seen as kind of a joke by most people. They were known for stunts like throwing red paint on women wearing fur coats, and their complaints about SeaWorld were largely disregarded by parkgoers at first. Groups like People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, or PETA, would protest outside of the park gates, and they were seen as a hassle to get through by most parkgoers. But then the winds started shifting, and the problem turned out to be impossible to ignore. One of the Orlando Park's orcas, Tilikum, became infamous for incidents that led to 3 people's deaths. In 1999, a 27-year-old man was found dead in the pool. An investigation found that he had stayed in the park after closing and entered the orca tank, and had likely been battered to death by the massive creature. This was on the guy who entered the tank of a creature called a killer whale. But it was a warning sign, and one the company didn't heed. And in 2010, Tilikum struck again. The orca pulled its trainer, Dawn Branshaw, into the pool by her ponytail after a show. Despite this, Tilikum returned to performing and died in 2017. But not even human deaths were enough to stop the park in its tracks. Many people were starting to ask if this was a good idea to keep these massive, unpredictable beasts not just in captivity, but performing with humans regularly. Things could go very wrong, and they did. Despite being vetted by wildlife experts, SeaWorld had a disturbing record of animal deaths. In 2015, a beluga whale suddenly died at the San Antonio park despite being only 2 years old. A pair of bottlenose dolphins in Orlando died that same year, and a baby beluga passed away only minutes after birth in 2017. Alarm bells started to sound that this just wasn't a healthy place for these animals, and a ticking clock for the company had started in 2013. There are many factors leading to the decline of SeaWorld, but none might have a bigger impact than the award-nominated documentary Blackfish. The film focused on Tilikum and followed the orca from his capture in 1983, his difficult stay at the aquarium Sealand of the Pacific in British Columbia, where another trainer had died, to his time at SeaWorld. The documentary captured many long-standing criticisms of SeaWorld, and they turned them into a powerful emotional narrative. It highlighted claims of heightened stress and shorter lifespans for captive orcas. The film was a critical success, and it turned up the heat on SeaWorld's captive orca program. And soon, some big names would be getting in on beating up on the company. After the release of Blackfish, Mattel severed its ties with SeaWorld and pulled a novelty Barbie doll that cast the famous blonde as an orca trainer. And Jackass star Steve-O went viral for a stunt that involved a massive inflatable killer whale reading SeaWorld Sucks, which sent the star to jail for 30 days with 3 years probation. For SeaWorld's part, it refused to take part in the production of Blackfish and made accusations that the film was inflammatory. Several trainers, as well as the late Dawn Branshaw's family, claimed that this portrayal of the state of the orcas was inaccurate. But it's not always about the proven facts, it's about the vibes. SeaWorld's faced a years-long torrent of bad press, and the company didn't make it any better with its responses. It faced one controversy after another, with its attempts to get fan engagement on Twitter being met with a tsunami of nasty comments about its animal program. And in 2015, it was accused of planting spies in animal rights organizations like PETA. One of its own human resources employees was reportedly sent undercover to infiltrate these groups, according to the claims, to provoke more aggressive or illegal protest tactics, giving activists a damaging PR black eye and shifting the narrative in SeaWorld's favor. And as things got worse, it wasn't clear if SeaWorld's business model could even survive. The company no doubt found a little hope from one of its competitors, the first theme park to set up shop in Orlando even before Disney, and that would be Gatorland, another park centered around up-close encounters with one of the most feared predators around. So what keeps this kitschy 1949 park up and running without too much controversy? Well, for one thing, it's actually an alligator rescue, buying and rescuing alligators that are caught by trappers. The environment of the park more closely resembles a swamp where gators would actually live, and the majority of the shows at the park are just alligator feeding experiences. They might be scary, but most animal activists say the gators are in a far better environment than the captive performing animals at SeaWorld. But let's just hope these activists don't look too closely. Gatorland has one thing SeaWorld definitely doesn't: you can order gator nuggets at the park's food stand. And as things didn't get any better, it was clear that something would have to change. In 2016, SeaWorld announced that it was ending its in-park orca breeding program and eventually ending its orca shows altogether. The park shifted its focus to more educational animal encounters, allowing visitors to see them in safe environments and watch feedings. SeaWorld Orlando, the company's flagship park, currently features a penguin exhibit, a wild Arctic exhibit featuring belugas, walruses, and harbor seals, and various educational shows featuring dolphins and sea lions. There's also an orca encounter that's designed to be safer for both the trainer and the whale, and it's still a good place to see rare sea life, but the focus has definitely changed. And what they've added in its place is adrenaline. SeaWorld has pivoted heavily to its amusement park sector since it had to minimize its animal-based attractions. The Orlando park now contains 8 roller coasters, plus a pair of thrilling water rides, and over a dozen family rides. This makes it a suitable one-day park even if you're not into the animal exhibits. But it's still just a fraction of the number of attractions that can be found at the big competition parks located just around the bend. Same goes for the smaller parks in San Diego and San Antonio, both of which have stepped up their roller coaster development. But the company's picture is far bigger than these 3 parks. Now, we're in an era of theme park empires, and if you're visiting a local theme park, the odds are very good that it might belong to a multinational conglomerate. What starts with SeaWorld doesn't end with SeaWorld, and the company has tried to pivot in recent years to unique experiences that you can't find in most other parks. A good example of this is Discovery Cove, a smaller secondary theme park near the Orlando park, which offers guests the chance to get a far more personal encounter with the animals, swimming with a bottlenose dolphin. The nature-based park doesn't feature any rides, but it contains dozens of trails and animal exhibits designed to resemble a trip through a tropical paradise. It's gotten good marks from animal lovers, but it's also by far the most expensive and exclusive experience in United Parks' portfolio, with only 1,300 people admitted per day. One of the most important parts of building a theme park empire these days is licenses. Familiar characters pull people in. Of course, Disney has no shortage of its own characters to celebrate in its parks. Universal has a powerful combo of in-house franchises like Jurassic Park and licensed ones like Harry Potter. Even coaster-heavy Six Flags has taken advantage of its ties to Warner Brothers to bring in the DC heroes and the Looney Tunes characters. United Parks doesn't have any ties to a movie studio, but it did manage to get one big license: Sesame Street. Not only are the kid-friendly characters present for rides and meet and greets at SeaWorld, but they play a starring role at the Sesame Place parks in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, and San Diego. These parks usually combine character meet and greets, small rides, water play areas, and a few mild roller coasters that are designed to be semi-affordable for families. But the future of United Parks might not lie in SeaWorld at all. The company's two flagship parks are actually located far away from any other theme park hubs, and they were actually developed long before SeaWorld was part of its portfolio. The company was initially owned by Busch Entertainment Corp., and it opened a series of small green spaces known as Busch Gardens to promote the product. Most of those are gone now, but two of them have been transformed into a pair of the most acclaimed theme parks in the country. Busch Gardens Tampa, which opened in 1959, has an African theme and combines wild animal exhibits and elaborate roller coasters. Busch Gardens Williamsburg, opened since 1975, is themed to villages of old Europe and features thematically appropriate food and music, along with its rides and animal exhibits. So how have these two parks avoided the pitfalls of SeaWorld? For one thing, both of those parks essentially hold themselves at zoo standards. Busch Gardens Tampa's African animals are not there to perform, although there are opportunities to interact with them. And the animals at Busch Gardens Williamsburg are either domestic animals like Clydesdale horses or rescues like wolves and bald eagles who live there in a sanctuary. People can observe the animals and learn about them, but certifying bodies have consistently approved of the treatment of the animals at these locations. So, is this the future of United Parks? There are a lot of problems that might keep the company from duplicating its own success. For one thing, the two parks are very big and very elaborate. To create a new park of this scale, United Parks would need a massive investment, a new theme, and the right location. Location isn't even ideal for one of these. Busch Gardens Williamsburg is located in Virginia, which means it gets pretty cold during the winter. Most of the rides are generally closed during the period, and the park is usually only open for special events, although its annual Christmas Town is considered one of the country's best holiday attractions. And while these parks may look special, a lot of people have said the modern world creeps in a little too much. Many of the company's problems come down to customer service, and while people don't say this is the worst company for that, reviews indicate it is far from the best. Corporate-owned parks often have similar problems. Both SeaWorld and Busch Gardens locations have gotten dinged in recent years for such issues as understaffing leading to frequent closures, too many cookie-cutter roller coasters, and very expensive souvenirs and food. The parks have also recently gone cashless, which many guests describe as a hassle. But despite this, the parks do have the best reputation of any in the United Parks portfolio. But is it enough to keep the company healthy? It comes down to one word: competition. With 7 domestic parks in its portfolio, United Parks is one of the largest chains in the country, for now. But only 3 of those parks, SeaWorld Orlando, SeaWorld San Diego, and Busch Gardens Tampa Bay, are among the 20 most visited parks in North America. If you combine those 3, you get a total visitor number in 2023 of around 13.5 million, which is lower than either Magic Kingdom or Disneyland on their own. Adding in the other parks will likely bring United Parks to its 21 million annual visitors, but that is a fraction compared to some of the others. And their competition is looking to make big moves fast. Disney and Universal might be sitting pretty atop the charts, but neither is resting on its laurels. Universal put the majority of its efforts into its new Epic Universe theme park, but also has elite new roller coasters coming soon and a kid-friendly mini park in Frisco, Texas. Disney, meanwhile, isn't opening any new parks in the US, but has announced a wave of massive new parklands, including new rides for Indiana Jones, Cars, and even the Disney villains in their Florida parks. And some of their rival chains are looking to join forces. One of the biggest earthquakes in the theme park world in decades came in 2024, when the two largest coaster-based amusement park chains in the country joined forces. Cedar Fair, which had 26 million visitors in 2023, and Six Flags, which had 22 million, merged under the Six Flags banner, but with the leadership of the former Cedar Fair chain. Assuming their attendance stays steady, that would put them only behind Disney and Universal for US-based chains. Six Flags faced serious financial troubles in the years before the merger, and the company has faced controversy for closing some prominent roller coasters. It even closed one of their 42 amusement and water parks as a cost-cutting measure. But there is no question it became a massive powerhouse in the theme park world. And even some of the smaller competitors are starting to make moves. While none of them get the visitors of a Disney or even a SeaWorld parks, some of the most acclaimed parks are way off the beaten path. Silver Dollar City, which has an Old West theme, and Dollywood, which combines an Appalachian theme with a celebration of country queen Dolly Parton, are both owned by Hershey Family Entertainment. The company also owns the Wild Adventures and Kentucky Kingdom parks and an aquarium in New Jersey. They were a fan favorite, but not seen as a huge player in the theme park world until early 2025. And that's when they made a deal to purchase the U.S. assets of Spanish-based Palace Entertainment, picking up over a dozen new parks, including the historic Kennywood near Pittsburgh. And then suddenly they've gone from scrappy underdog to powerhouse, which likely leaves many at United Parks wondering, what's next? While United Parks is still holding relatively strong in the top 5 American theme park chains, its overall numbers don't show good signs. It reported $21.6 million in 2023, down 1.5% from the previous year. That's partially explained by the COVID-19 pandemic, which shut down theme park travel for a while and caused ripples in the tourist industry that never quite recovered. But it's not mirrored across the board. While Six Flags saw a drop, other chains rose. Cedar Fair in particular gained 5 million annual guests. Disney gained 23 million guests, and Universal nearly tripled its attendance before Epic Universe opened its gates, which means it might not be a general theme park problem, it might be a SeaWorld problem. The two Busch Gardens parks have seen their attendance stay mostly solid, with Williamsburg holding its own as the 20th most attended park in the country, despite not being a year-round park. But SeaWorld Orlando has had one of the most dramatic slides, going from 5.8 million in 2009 to 4.3 million in 2023 after the COVID lull. San Diego has had a similar slide, going from 4.2 to 3.9 million. The trend is clear, and increasingly it's leaving the team behind United Parks with a difficult question to answer. What do they do that is better than anyone else? Disney has had a reputation for being the best family park in the world. Universal is trying to establish itself as the most immersive theme park in the world, with state-of-the-art thrill rides. Hershey Family Entertainment's flagship parks are known for their rustic atmosphere and great unique food and souvenirs. And if you're mostly into seeing just how far a roller coaster can push the limits of human endurance, Six Flags has you covered with more and more extreme coasters every year. And if SeaWorld can't figure that out, the slide might continue. SeaWorld and its associated parks suffer from having a little bit of everything, but not being the best at anything. If someone wants to see an animal exhibit and is worried about the animals, they'll likely choose a zoo or a certified aquarium, somewhere that the focus is more on natural living environments. If they want a roller coaster, well, other local parks are likely to have even more and crazier parks than their local SeaWorld. And while Sesame Street has a big audience, it's not clear if Grover and Cookie Monster can win out against Mickey and the Minions, which means that the leadership is no doubt looking at some big swings. All the major parks in United Parks' portfolio have been making major additions lately, with many of the SeaWorld and Busch Gardens parks adding roughly a roller coaster per year. But while most of these new coasters have been well regarded, these new rides mostly appeal to the same coaster fans who are already coming, so they don't move the needle. As Six Flags experiments with evolving its lineup of parks and Hershey begins to flex its muscles as a rising theme park powerhouse, United Parks' position on the chart starts to look more and more perilous, which means if it doesn't figure out this new brand soon, SeaWorld might be headed deep down below the waves. SeaWorld isn't the only giant gasping for air. Another American icon is choking too. Watch the real reason Subway is failing to see why your footlong might be on its last legs, or click on this video instead.